and Anita Roman.
A war hero, political titan, and maverick of the Senate, Senator John McCain has died at the age of 81. A look back at his life and legacy.
And what happens next? Governor Doug Ducey will now face the task of appointing someone to Senator McCain's seat. We'll explain how the process works.
Good Sunday morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us. I'm Ty Brennan.
And I'm Anita Roman.
It is a somber morning in Arizona as we say goodbye to our longtime Senator, John McCain.
Senator McCain passed away yesterday following a year-long battle with brain cancer. He was 81 years old. McCain died at his family's ranch in Cornville yesterday evening at 4:28 p.m. He was surrounded by his family. Senator McCain spent most of his time in Cornville since he left Washington, D.C. last December. He had said that he hoped to return to the Senate but was not able to do so. Our John Hook takes a look back at the senator's legacy.
John Sidney McCain III followed family tradition by serving in the United States Navy. Both his father and grandfather ended their naval careers as four-star admirals. John III graduated from the U.S. Naval Academy in 1958 and became a naval aviator during the height of the Vietnam War. After nearly being killed in a 1967 fire aboard the USS Forrestal, McCain was shot down on a bombing mission over Hanoi. He ejected and parachuted into a lake, where he was pulled ashore and severely beaten.
When I was first captured, they bayoneted me a couple of times and broke my shoulder.
Seriously injured, he was tortured by his captors and forced to read a statement on camera.
The plane continued straight down, and I ejected and broke my leg and both arms.
You have faith in God, faith in your country, faith in the knowledge that your citizens are behind you and are doing everything they can to bring you home.
McCain then moved to Arizona and entered politics. In 1982, he was elected to the U.S. House of Representatives. But after 2 terms, he ran for the U.S. Senate seat, being vacated by Barry Goldwater.
I will be a candidate to serve the people of Arizona in the United States Senate in 1986.
McCain first ran for the Republican presidential nomination in 2000. 8 years later, we were with the senator once again on the Straight Talk Express as he made his second bid for the White House in 2008.
David Brooks of the New York Times. Okay. John Hook of the Salvation Army.
But without big campaign contributors, the early going was rough.
Obviously, we've had to make some changes in our staff and get our finances under control.
At one point, he was seen traveling alone to California aboard a commercial flight, where our Steve Kraft caught up with him.
Mr. McCain takes his place in boarding group A. He looks just like any other business traveler. You'd never guess he's running for president.
Every campaign I've ever been in has had ups and downs, and we're having a downer, but we're obviously on the way back up.
But the more orthodox conservative positions he took helped him in a remarkable comeback. And he secured the nomination, culminating in his acceptance speech at the GOP convention in Minneapolis.
I have a privilege given few Americans, the privilege of accepting our party's nomination for President of the United States. A rare privilege.
McCain lost the election. McCain was always on the move.
How are you?
Good.
Whether it was off to a committee meeting or an interview, the senator was always someone who set a pace few could match.
I love you.
Thank you, sir. God bless. Thank you.
Jesus loves you too.
Thank you.
I think the most important thing is to make the most of every moment you have. Teddy Roosevelt used to call it his crowded hour.
McCain's crowded hour was interrupted in July of 2017 when he was diagnosed with a particularly aggressive form of brain cancer. Scottsdale Mayo Clinic doctors said that the senator had primary glioblastoma, a type of brain tumor. It was discovered when McCain had surgery to remove a blood clot behind his left eye.
What a great honor, an extraordinary opportunity it is to serve in this body.
I won't be here forever, and now's my opportunity to do good things, or try to do good things. And so I seize every opportunity to do so.
And as we mentioned, Senator McCain spent his final months at his ranch in Cornville, west of Sedona's Red Rocks.
Yeah, he was with his family and friends there. We received several high-profile visitors at that ranch, and our Courtney Griffin was actually in Cornville last night when that motorcade started.
Well, we're here in Cornville where the McCain family lives. It has since quieted down, but earlier it was very active here. We saw a hearse and several black SUVs leave the ranch. We have some video to show you of that. The hearse was carrying Senator John McCain's body to Phoenix. We actually passed the procession as we headed up here. We saw several police cars escorting the hearse. Behind them, lots of cars were moving bumper to bumper. When we arrived here, we didn't see anyone out and about walking around. However, earlier, neighbors were out showing their respects to McCain, a man who was a true American hero who served our country and state for many decades. Here, his home is where McCain spent his final months. It's also where his daughter's wedding was held last November, and a place several of his friends came to visit. Right now, a very difficult and emotional time for the family and the many people who loved and cared very much for the senator. Of course, we're going to continue to bring you the latest details as they develop. Courtney Griffin, Fox 10 News.
Courtney Griffin in Cornville for us this morning. McCain's body was moved from his home in Cornville to a funeral home right here in the valley, A.L. Moore Grimshaw Mortuaries. Last night, dozens of people lined up holding flags to pay their last respects as that motorcade arrived.
There's different, religions and different, political bases, but everybody's just joined together and wanting to pay the respects to an incredible man who did great for Arizona and the country.
A large groups, very emotional, also gathered to watch the motorcade as it passed along the I-17 freeway. In the meantime, reaction to news of the senator's death is pouring in. Family, friends, colleagues, and admirers all around the world sharing their thoughts and memories. His wife Cindy tweeting last night, "My heart is broken. I am so lucky to have lived the adventure of loving this incredible man for 38 years. He passed the way he lived on his own terms, surrounded by the people he loved, in the place he loved the best."
And in a statement, his daughter, Meghan McCain, said in part, quote, "He was a great fire who burned bright, and he lived his light and warmth for so very long. We know that his flame lives on in each of us. The days and years to come will not be without my dad, but they will be good days filled with life and love because of the example he lived for us."
Oh, there was question as to whether or not President Trump would react. But within 30 minutes of the news of Senator McCain's passing, Mr. Trump posted this tweet: "My deepest sympathies and respects go out to the family of Senator John McCain. Our hearts and prayers are with you." Well, from sports stars to celebrities, many people are reacting to Senator John McCain's death on social media this morning. Let's go to Ty with a look at what's being said.
Yeah, Anita, this is pretty incredible. People from both sides of the aisle, all spectrums of life, really tweeting their condolences to the McCain family and also kind of just adding some anecdotes for themselves. Look at this. Ellen DeGeneres tweeted, "I was honored to have met John McCain. He stood up for what he believed was right, sending lots of love on this very sad day to our country." Lindsey Graham, one of his very good friends, says, "America and freedom have lost one of her greatest champions, and I've lost one of my dearest friends and mentors." Bill Clinton, President Bill Clinton, writing, "John McCain believed that every citizen has a responsibility to make something of the freedoms given by our Constitution, and from his heroic service in the Navy to his 35 years in Congress, he lived by his creed every day." Also, here is one from his former running mate back in 2008, Sarah Palin. "Today we lost an American original. Senator John McCain was a maverick and a fighter, never afraid to stand for his beliefs. John never took the easy path in life, and through sacrifice and suffering, he inspired others to serve something greater than self." A lot of interesting tweets here. They go on and on from, again, all spectrums of the political world here.
So interesting to see how many lives he touched.
Sure does.
Senator McCain's longtime friend, former Arizona Attorney General Grant Woods, sharing his memories with Fox 10. He says McCain had an incredible sense of humor and despite his accomplishments was a very humble man. Take a listen.
He led an American life like few others ever had, and he was ours. He was ours in Arizona. That's pretty great. We're pretty lucky, and that's how I look at it.
Was he our Teddy Roosevelt?
He was. Teddy Roosevelt was one of his heroes, and yeah, so he would like that. He would like that comparison, and yeah, he had a lot of similar qualities to Teddy Roosevelt for sure. He wasn't afraid to buck his party. He wasn't afraid to stand up for things that he believed even if they weren't popular. He saw, for example, like Teddy Roosevelt, the Republican Party can be pro-environment and not you know, and still be amenable to business, that they're not mutually exclusive. I mean, he had a lot of similarities to Teddy Roosevelt.
Well, Fox 10 also spoke with another one of Senator McCain's good friends, Arizona Senator Jeff Flake. The junior senator spoke about all the trips they took together between Arizona as well as Washington, D.C. Flake recounted how Senator McCain helped him when he was in the House one time when he was getting backlash over supporting a policy about funding for a parochial spending project. Here's what Flake had to say about his dear friend.
Because he stuck to his principles, and that was the advice he gave me on that day, and I've never forgot it. And so I've just always appreciated him for so many reasons, not just because of his political positions, but because he was a good friend, and I'll miss him greatly.
In an op-ed piece for the Washington Post published hours after McCain's death, Flake said McCain was like, quote, having an older brother to protect me, the guy nobody wants to mess with. The death of Senator John McCain yesterday means that Arizona now has 2 open Senate seats, with Senator Jeff Flake set to retire.
And his death now has the potential to reshape both the U.S. Senate and Arizona politics. So the question is, what's next? Well, Governor Doug Ducey will now face the task of appointing someone to McCain's seat. He's already ruled himself out and has been silent on potential successors so far, out of respect for the late senator and his family. The only constraint that the governor must appoint someone from McCain's party, so a Republican. And because McCain's passing came after May 30th, it is now too late to put a name on the ballot for this November. And there is no provision in the state constitution to call for a special election. So that means whomever is named to fill McCain's seat will be there until the next regularly scheduled statewide election. That won't be until November of 2020.
McCain, a war hero, a respected politician, John McCain was quite an accomplished author as well. He worked closely with his longtime aide, Mark Salter, on several books over the years.
And we have a couple of those books in the newsroom, widely read. The most recent one is called The Restless Wave, Good Times, Just Causes, Great Fights, and Other Appreciation. This came out in May. A lot of people were talking a lot about this book. And so what we want to do is read a little bit of what Senator McCain wrote on the inside of the cover.
Yeah, you want to take it?
Yep. It says, I don't know how much longer I'll be here. Maybe I'll have another 5 years. Maybe with the advances in oncology, they'll find new treatments for my cancer that will extend my life.
Maybe I'll be gone before you read this. My predicament is, well, rather unpredictable, but I'm prepared for either contingency, or at least I'm getting prepared. I have things I'd like to take care of first, some work that needs finishing, and some people I need to see. And I do want to talk to my fellow Americans a little more, if I may.
Well, the book starts with the day after he lost the 2008 election to Barack Obama, waking up in Phoenix at his condo, which is located near 24th Street in Camelback. The people who have read it here in the newsroom, our executive producer calls it an interesting read. She says he goes on in great detail about the presidential race, the frustrations with the campaign when he realized early on that he was not going to win. Can you imagine that, though? Putting your heart and soul into something second time around, and then realizing it's just not going to happen. So he talks about choosing a VP candidate and how Sarah Palin came into the picture.
Yeah, he talks about the war in Iraq in a really touching excerpt. He talks about how when on the campaign trail and so many people were against the war, he was one of the earliest proponents of sending American troops to Iraq. A mother came up to him. Her 22-year-old son, Matthew, was killed in combat. She asked if he would wear a bracelet with her son's name. He said he was so touched, his emotions began to swell. He thought he would lose his composure, but he was able to keep it together, and he told her that he would be honored to wear that bracelet. He wore that bracelet every single day from that point on. And in the book, he said he will wear it for the rest of his life.
Senator McCain, several books, as you mentioned, out. That one is entitled Worth Fighting For. And so those are all available. And obviously, some very interesting reads and a lot of insight from what many call a war hero and brilliant man.
Yeah, an incredible life, too. All right, well, still to come here this morning, Senator John McCain has served the state and the country for many decades. Now Marcy Jones is going to be live at the Capitol for us, talking about kind of what's next.
That's right, Ty. A very somber morning here in the valleys. This is the first time that Arizonans have woken up without their beloved John McCain. Now, we're going to be talking about the funeral plans coming up for the senator.
Senator John McCain battled brain cancer for a little over a year.
Well, let's take a look back at that time. It was in July of 2017 that doctors at the Mayo Clinic in Phoenix removed a blood clot above the senator's left eye, and that is when they discovered the tumor. He was diagnosed with brain cancer.
In November, Senator John McCain returned to Washington following the August recess, and on September 12th of 2017, his office announced he would receive both chemotherapy and radiation treatment.
And then on November 6th, McCain's office announced that he had been treated at Walter Reed Medical Center for side effects from his cancer treatment and for a minor tear in his right Achilles tendon. After this, he was seen wearing a boot around the Senate chambers and in photographs from his daughter's wedding.
And then in December, we learned that McCain was being treated for a viral infection at Walter Reed. At that time, doctors said McCain was responding positively to his cancer treatments. He returned to Arizona for the holiday and continued physical therapy at the Mayo Clinic. His office said he was looking forward to returning back to Washington in January. However, McCain never returned to the Senate.
And then in April, McCain was admitted to the Mayo Clinic in Phoenix, where he underwent surgery to treat an intestinal infection from diverticulitis. His office said in the statement that McCain had been undergoing physical therapy at his home in Cornville, remained engaged in his work in the Senate as well.
On Friday, August 24th, McCain's office released a statement saying the senator had stopped treatment for his cancer. And then yesterday, he passed away at 4:28 at the age of 81 years old. Just a few days away from his 82nd birthday.
Just about to turn 82 years old.
Well, the U.S. political website The Hill is reporting Senator John McCain will lie in state, both here in Arizona as well in Washington, D.C., before his funeral.
And Marcy Jones is live at the state capitol this morning with more on what we know will happen next. Good morning, Marcy.
Good morning, Anita and Ty. As you just mentioned, just 4 days short of the senator's 82nd birthday, he succumbed to his aggressive brain cancer. And here at the Arizona State Capitol, you can just feel a heaviness that is just palpable, especially because you know that in the hearts of everybody here in Arizona that he is just here with us right now. He is not gone. The New York Times is reporting that the senator will lie in the Capitol Rotunda in Washington, D.C. and receive a full dress service at the Washington National Cathedral. Now, McCain, who succumbed to his battle with brain cancer, will also rest here at the Arizona Capitol in Phoenix before his burial in Annapolis, Maryland. Governor Doug Ducey has also ordered all flags to be lowered to half staff, and the president has also ordered the same for the White House. It was reported earlier this year that former Presidents George W. Bush and Barack Obama are expected to deliver eulogies at McCain's funeral. Now, back out here, all of the details of the funerals and ways that people are paying their respects have yet to be released. They're kind of trickling out. So for now, that is the latest. But of course, as soon as any more information rolls in, we'll bring that to you. Guys.
Thanks so much, Marcy. All right, coming up, when you've been in the Senate as long as Senator McCain has been, the job tends to take you places. We're going to take a look at all the places Senator McCain has been to honor our troops.
Fox 10 AZAM with Ty Brennan and Anita Roman.
An American hero, Senator John McCain dies at the age of 81. This morning, family, friends, and colleagues speaking out about the impact he had.
And our very own John Hook, he got to know Senator John McCain on a personal level. And this morning, he's going to share some of his favorite memories.
We will continue our coverage of Senator McCain's death in just a moment, but we have some important information to get to you this morning. A Fox 10 News alert. The Phoenix Police Department asking for help from the community in locating this 9-year-old boy. He is missing.
His name is Greedon Allen Phillips, and this is his picture. He is about 4 feet tall, 80 pounds, wearing a black shirt and black and white basketball shorts. He's been missing since yesterday, last seen around noon near Cactus and 20th Avenue.
Anyone with any information concerning his whereabouts is asked to call police as soon as possible. You can contact the Phoenix Police Department. 6:30 Monday morning, we continue our coverage of the late Senator McCain. The Arizona senator was easily one of the most traveled U.S. senators.
Yeah, that especially became the case after 9/11. He was often seen meeting the troops in Afghanistan and later in Iraq. These are photos of McCain in Kabul on the 4th of July 2 years ago. He used these occasions to push for a strong military presence in the wake of terrorist attacks around the world.
We believe strongly that we need 9,800 here, and further reductions would then cause a replay of the Iraq nightmare.
McCain's last trip to Afghanistan was a little more than a year ago. The 4th of July in 2017, he called on President Trump to develop a strategy to end the U.S. deployment there by achieving victory over the Taliban.
One of the final honors to be bestowed upon Senator John McCain was the very prestigious Liberty Medal. It was awarded to the senator last October by the National Constitution Center in Philadelphia. Former Vice President Joe Biden was a presenter. The moment was meant to award McCain for his years of military service and service to the Senate. But in the traditional style that made McCain famous, the U.S. senator from Arizona held nothing back when he claimed the country was moving backwards under President Trump's America First agenda.
To fear the world we have organized and led the 3/4 of a century, to abandon the ideals we have advanced around the globe, to refuse the obligations of international leadership and our duty to remain the last best hope of Earth, for the sake of some half-baked, spurious nationalism cooked up by people who would rather find scapegoats than solve problems, is as unpatriotic as an attachment to any other tired dogma of the past that Americans consigned to the ash heap of history.
After that speech, President Trump told a radio audience that his critics, namely McCain, have to be careful. McCain responded to that by saying, quote, "I faced far greater challenges than this."
Well, reaction continues to pour in this morning from those who knew Senator John McCain. Former Vice President Joe Biden sharing his memories of John McCain. He tweeted, here it is right here, "John McCain was many things, a proud graduate of the Naval Academy, a Senate colleague, a political opponent, but to me, more than anything, John was a friend. He will be dearly missed." It's been reported that Biden's son, Beau, also died from the exact same type of brain cancer McCain was diagnosed with. And Meghan McCain, John's daughter, said multiple times that she's reached out to former Vice President Joe Biden about kind of dealing with all of this.
Quite the connection there between the two families. Former President Barack Obama posted this photo on Facebook. The picture is that of former president and John McCain together. President Obama wrote, quote, "Few of us had been tested the way John once was, or required to show the kind of courage that he did. But all of us can aspire to the courage to put the greater good above our own. At John's best, he showed us what that means, and for that, we are all in his debt. Michelle and I send our most heartfelt condolences to Cindy and the family."
And Arizona Governor Doug Ducey calling Senator McCain a giant as well as an icon and American hero. He also said in part, quote, "Angela and I join all Arizonans in praying for Cindy and the entire McCain family during this difficult time. May his life and legacy continue to inspire us to build a future for this country and a history for this country that would make John McCain proud."
And Minority Leader Senator Chuck Schumer released a statement mourning John McCain's death. The Democrat says he plans to introduce a resolution to rename a Senate office building after the war hero. Schumer says, quote, "Nothing will overcome the loss of Senator McCain, but so that generations remember him, I will introduce a resolution to rename the Russell Building after him." Our very own John Hook got to know Senator John McCain on a pretty personal level. We saw in the package earlier, he actually got to travel with him the first time he ran for president.
And they developed a kind of rapport, a joking rapport.
Yeah.
So he is sharing some of his memories here with us this morning. Take a look.
John McCain was a complicated man. I've known him for a lot of years, and John McCain could be incredibly sweet and kind, and he could also be very tough and bristly. It kind of depended on what day you caught him. One thing I always felt around John McCain is that he was in a rush. he was busy moving on to the next thing he had to do. He didn't have a lot of time for trivialities and stuff. He was moving. And so with the media, you had to work quickly or you wouldn't get what you wanted. But he'd always have a funny aside and make fun of you and, you know, and joke with you. He liked doing that. But he was always kind of thinking about the next thing he had to do. A lot of years with John McCain. I first met him in 1982. He was running for Congress to fill John Rhodes' seat. And one of the questions that kept coming up is, who is this McCain guy? He's new to Arizona, and people were calling him a carpetbagger, a guy who had moved here simply to run for political office. And he answered that in one question that pretty much silenced the critics forever. He told a woman who had asked him about it, he said, "Ma'am, the longest place I've ever lived in my life was 5.5 years in the Hanoi Hilton as a prisoner of war." That ended that. The lowest point that I ever saw for John McCain was during the Keating 5 controversy in 1989. He told me in Tucson, he said, "I don't need this. I can take the political rough and tumble, but they're now questioning my character and my truthfulness and my integrity." And it really, really bothered him. He had had, of course, a scrape with Charlie Keating, who was under investigation by the federal government in connection with the savings and loan scandal. And McCain had accepted trips and gifts and contributions from Charlie Keating and got swept up in what became known as the Keating 5. That forever scarred him. Probably led to McCain-Feingold later on, that McCain himself felt that the system had to be cleansed, that there were problems. But that was the moment that I felt he was at his lowest. I really felt that day when he said, I don't need this, that he was seriously thinking about getting out. That it was not worth it to him to have his integrity questioned. Now, eventually, in the end, McCain was pretty much exonerated. They felt that he used poor judgment in the Keating affair, but that was about the extent of it. But I think it forever marked him and upset him that he was connected with that scandal. I've seen him in a lot of different phases, at times of incredible triumph. I think of the 2000 campaign. We rode around with him on the Straight Talk Express in his really unpredictable run for president, where he really gave George Bush a run for his money early on. He didn't win the nomination, but he was the maverick and he was the outsider. And the media loved him, they adored him, and they loved being around him because it was a fun campaign. And I remember being at John McCain's final town hall in Peterborough before the New Hampshire primary in 2000. This is a place where he had served ice cream to a handful of people just months before, and now it was packed. The place was overflowing. And you could sense that there was a movement, there was something happening, and McCain was tapping into something very special in New Hampshire. And as it turned out, he beat George W. Bush by double digits, even a bigger win than Barry Goldwater had back there in 1964. John McCain liked to tease people, and he loved to tease reporters. And when I was engaged, and he found out I was getting married, he turned to his aide and he said, "Oh, Johnny's getting married. He finally met someone who loves him more than he loves himself." And that's debatable. Well, now comes along the 2008 campaign, and boy, what a difference from the 2000 campaign. I have to be honest with you, it was not nearly as fun. John McCain had to become a conventional party person. He was the anointed one for the Republican Party and ran what I felt was kind of a joyless campaign. It was not nearly as fun being on the Straight Talk. He was not, I didn't feel himself. He was presenting a candidacy that he felt the Republican Party needed and a candidacy that he needed to run to win. But I didn't feel that it was nearly as fun as what we saw in 2000. The last thing John McCain would ever want anybody to feel was sympathy for him. He was a big boy, and he gave as hard as he got, and he was the toughest guy, one of the toughest I've ever met. I think he always felt that he was a little bit in the shadow of Barry Goldwater, that Barry Goldwater was always going to be Arizona's icon. And I think even beyond John McCain's wildest imagination, maybe he eclipsed Barry Goldwater in terms of notoriety and impact. That's for the historians to figure out, but John McCain will never see someone like that again.
Wow, some pretty interesting anecdotes from John Hook there.
Great insight. Can you imagine riding that Straight
Wow,
Talk
yeah.
Express? Well, stay with Fox 10. We will have continuing coverage on John McCain's death throughout the day.
You can go to our website, fox10phoenix.com, for the latest updates.
And coming up in about 15 minutes, how people here in the Valley are paying tribute to the late senator.
And coming up, we want to bring you up to date with the day's other top stories. A deadly collision on the I-10 causing a massive traffic backup. What police say happened when they arrived on scene.
Plus, teachers are spending the day at the Arizona State Capitol, where they're saying changes need to be made on how they invest in ed proposal is being described on the ballot in November. Stay close. We'll be right back.
With a Fox 10 News Alert, we want to get out to you. The Phoenix Police Department is looking for this little boy. He is 9 years old.
His name is Greedon Allen Phillips. Here's his picture. He's 4 feet tall, 80 pounds, wearing a black shirt, black and white basketball shorts. He was been missing since yesterday, last seen around noon near Cactus and 20th Avenue. Sergeant Tommy Thompson with the Phoenix Police Department on the line with us this morning. This is a very urgent matter, Sergeant.
Yes, it is. Again, as you said, 9-year-old Greydon Allen Phillips was the last seen in the area of 20th Avenue and West Cactus Road in Phoenix. And he's a little guy. He's 4 feet tall. He's 80 pounds. And his family is greatly concerned for where he may be. On a positive note, it could be as simple as he's at somebody's house, and he stayed longer than he should have without telling his parents. We don't have any information right now that it's nefarious activity, but we're asking the community to please contact the Phoenix Police Department as soon as possible if they know where he is.
Tommy, do you know the circumstances of, did he leave the house on his own? Did he tell his parents anything before he left?
Right now, I don't have any information other than they found that he was missing again about noon yesterday, and police officers have been attempting to try to locate him, and our protocol is as soon as it becomes overnight, then we immediately launch out to the community to ask for help.
Yeah, can you talk a little bit about the search then this morning? You mentioned launching out to the community. Are you going door to door, knocking, looking in area parks?
Generally, that's what we do. We look everywhere possible. We send it out to all of our officers that they check any place that a young person might go, whether it be a park, whether it be a store, whether it be a mall. In this case, we just don't know where he is. And again, we're hoping it's as simple as he's at somebody's house that he just forgot to tell his parents about, which would not be uncommon for a 9-year-old boy. But we need the help from the community. Hopefully someone's waking up this morning and goes, wait a minute, Greedon, you need to call home. Okay. But we want them to contact the police department.
How do they do that, Tommy?
They can call us at, certainly they can call 602-262-6151, or they can call the Violent Crimes Bureau at 602-262-6141. But we sure would like to get a phone call as soon as possible so we can locate this young boy.
All right, Tommy Thompson with the Phoenix Police Department joining us on the phone this morning. Thank you so much. We, of course, will put those numbers on our social media accounts as well, so folks can hopefully bring Greydon back safely this morning. Thanks, Tommy.
Appreciate it. Only this morning, police responding to a shots fired call. This is in Tempe at a party.
Yeah, officers say this happened just after midnight at a home near Rural and Southern. Police say 2 people were shot following a fight. They were both sent to the hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. Police say there are no suspects in custody and have not released a suspect description just yet. The case is still under investigation.
DPS is on the scene of a deadly collision involving 3 cars in which 2 of the drivers tried to run away. It happened yesterday in the westbound I-10 lane, 67th Avenue. So troopers say 26-year-old Paul Richard Portillo Almen ran out of gas, which forced 29-year-old Marisa Ortega to stop. Well, that's when they say 35-year-old Jose Manuel Zapata Jr. hit the other 2 cars, killing Ortega. DPS says both Portillo Almen and Zapata Jr. tried to leave the scene. They were eventually found and arrested. So both now face manslaughter and aggravated assault charges. There were 2 infants in Ortega's car. They were taken to the hospital with non-life-threatening injuries.
Well, the battle continues over Prop 207, the Invest in Ed initiative that asks voters to raise taxes for people that make more than $250,000. Those who support the proposal met yesterday at the Capitol with lawmakers to talk about the wording of the proposal on that ballot. They say they wanted to make sure that it was clear, concise, and upfront with voters.
Very important decision that will change the funding in our schools and will bring us out of the bottom in Arizona school funding and per pupil funding. So we need a clear description of what it is, and then let them know the nitty-gritty about how we're going to be increasing that funding by taxing the top less than 1% of Arizona earners.
Lawmakers took out where the money would go, but teachers say they want it back in. The teachers say the money will go to teacher salaries, classroom resources, and full-day kindergarten. The teachers add that they want the description of the proposal to start with where the money would go rather than who would be taxed. Well, Olympian gold medalist and Valley resident Michael Phelps is getting back in the pool, but not to come out of retirement.
Shucks, right? The Michael Phelps Foundation celebrated 10 years of educating the public on water safety. The swimming pool is a very familiar place for Phelps, as you probably know. He is the most decorated athlete in Olympic history with 28 Olympic gold medals, including 23 gold medals. The Olympic swimmer got in the water with fellow U.S. Olympian Allison Schmidt to give kids a lesson at the Boys and Girls Club of Phoenix. Well, Phelps says that the number of drownings really is shocking, especially since they can be prevented.
You know, for us, we want to have the chance to be able to teach as many kids as we can just to be water safe, because if you look at some of the stats out there, they're kind of scary to see. Drowning for children under the age of 14 is the second highest cause of death.
Phelps shared some tips with parents on how to keep their kids safe around water. So he recommends that both parents and kids learn how to swim. Also recommends that parents learn CPR, and that if anyone does have a pool, you put up gates and barriers. The ABCs of pool safety, right?
Sure are. They're important too, especially here in Arizona when those temperatures get hot. All right, still to come, continuing coverage of Senator John McCain's death. Several people wishing to honor the late senator. We're going to take a look at how people are remembering him.